So, I was asked to just do a little workshop about using holodecks. All right. So, one of the challenges if you're going to do machinima is finding the kind of settings that you might want to use for whatever it is you're recording. And as may have been mentioned before, one of the issues in Second Life is if you own an island, for example, here we are on Edunation 1, you're allowed to have out at any one time a maximum of 15,000 prims. So again, that's 15,000 prims. And that's a lot, but if you're in a space like this where you have a whole bunch of people with houses, and they've got furniture, and you've got some landscaping and all that sort of stuff out here, that adds up pretty fast. So when we have an educational environment like this, we want to give our students access to as much as possible. So one of the things that I like using in Second Life are holodecks. And right now, please don't click it, but right now you're all standing on a holodeck, that blue circle. Let me just check again. Make sure everybody can still hear me okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So on the holodeck you're standing on right now, I am going to res for us a seating area. This is a forest, for example. So stuff is going to be shooting out of the holodeck here. And what this allows me to do is, if I want access to this forest, I can click my holodeck and bring it up. And this forest scene, for example, I think has maybe somewhere around 700 prims. It's enough prims that I wouldn't want to leave it sitting out all the time, because the more prims you have out, the more potentially it can slow things down. But when I want to access it, I can. It's slowly coming out, I think. Yeah, there we're starting to get some more. So some stuff is going to pop in front of you. Normally, this is very fast. It's a very fast process to change between scenes. The forest scene would be out and rezzed, for me, normally within, a few seconds. So this is very slow. But just to continue, again, what this allows you to do is, if you want to do machinima in a variety of settings, in our holodecks here on Edunation now, I think we have something like over 100 different scenes. So some forest scenes, scenes that look like classrooms, a couple castle scenes, and I'm working on a big castle scene right now. Boy, let me think here. What else? There's a giant ice skating scene over on Edunation 3. There's a go-kart scene. So there's scenes for, almost anything you can think of. We have scenes, and I build new ones as we go along. Yeah. So if you're standing in the fire, it's okay. All right. Now we're starting to get the walls coming up around us, so it's looking a little more foresty. So it's continuing to res here, and as you can see, I mean, this is one little spot on Edunation, but with the holodeck, if you picture this for doing things like filming, very quickly you go from this simple island scene to a fairly convincing simulation of a forest. I mean, you see the walls that look like trees in the background. If you look up, which you can do with your camera controls, you can see there are a couple tree houses up there, and there's a big rope bridge that goes between the tree houses. We've got a little A-frame house over here with more seating and a fireplace. It's a little picnic area, a rope to climb up to the trees, and lots of seating around the logs. Fully res, finally.
Randall, Randall, have you built all of these, or did they come and...
Now, that's a good question. The holodeck there's a number of different holodeck programs that you can get in Second Life, and there's also an open source one that I've experimented with, but it was very, very clunky, so I kind of gave up on it. There's a number that you can buy. This one is called the Horizons holodeck system. And let me just give a quick price check to see what it's at now. It comes on various prices. Second Life Marketplace. So if I go to Second Life Marketplace, and yeah, it depends on which version you buy. So I'm going to put in Horizons holodeck. Let me see. There's 3 versions you can get of the holodeck. There's a basic edition. The basic edition, you can play the scenes that come with it, because about 20 scenes, I think, come with it. You can buy other scenes to add to it, but you can't create your own scenes. That's only 600 lindens. That's cheap. The Pro version, which is the one I have, is 3,000 lindens. So that's, about $12 US. But the Pro edition, what that does is if I build something, I can package it to put into my holodeck, or I can package it and have Horizon sell it for me if I want to, or I can give it to other people for them to use in their holodecks. So if I just about resin here, I see from Heike. So I'm going to leave this out for just a bit so people can actually see it. So with a Horizon system, the basic scenes that come with it, I mean, they're not very fancy, but like there's a bus scene, there's a little cafe, and then there's some kind of goofy ones like a really cheesy farm scene, but it's really really cheesy. It's not very fancy. How many prims can you package into the Pro version is the question. Well, like I said, right now we have probably 100+ scenes in our holodecks, which means if we tried to res all of those scenes at once, it would be many more than 15,000 prims. I have not yet found an upper limit, because essentially what you're doing with a holodeck, many of you have bought things in Second Life. For example, like maybe you bought a house and it came in a box which is something like ResFo, where you can click the box and it will say, do you want to res a scene? Essentially what a holodeck does is it takes a bunch of boxes like that and puts them into the holodeck, and then you're choosing which box to res. So it's like ResFo on steroids. Is there a limit on area? Well, the only limit is the limit of the sim you're on. You could, if I wanted to, I could do a whole landscaping scene in Horizons so that I could have a winter tree package for Edunation, a summer tree package, and just click the holodeck to change it. I also use the holodeck for scenes up in the sky, so I could have a teleporter on the ground, only a teleporter. But up in the sky at 3,000 meters, I could have a great big build if I want to have it up out of the way. So I'm just kind of looking back at some of these questions again. Limit on area, essentially no. You cannot build in Second Life above 4,000 meters, so that's the only limit. Can I package objects with the basic? You cannot package your own creations with the basic system. The basic system only allows you to add stuff that already is a scene. So Horizons has a store where you can buy lots of scenes. No problem, Ton. See you later. So is there a prim limit on an individual scene? Again, not that I found. I guess in theory maybe the prim limit would be however many prims a sim might hold. What kind of land space do you need? Boy, people have tons of questions. What kind of land space do you need? This is one of the nice things about holodecks. So yeah, and we can look at another one. I'm going to clear this scene out. And here's the advantage again. When I'm done, I just type clear and it's gone. So I'm going to show you instead, whoops, here is a little castle. Kind of walk towards the middle of the holodeck here if you would, so you don't get stuck outside. Here's a little castle I made for my students for meetings and such. So that should be coming up. The previous question was, what kind of land space do you need? Well, that's the nice thing if you have a holodeck. I could take my holodeck any place in Second Life where there's a sandbox. I can put it out on the sandbox. In fact, I've done this before. I put it out on the sandbox and I sit on my holodeck, and then I raise the holodeck up to 1,000 meters, and then I res the scene, and there's my big scene up above this sandbox. That's, I'm using the space for free, and I can use it. I can use it for as long as I want to. So it's as Barbara said, it's a really good way if you don't have land, but you want a space you can use, for as long as the sandbox allows. Some of them return stuff after 3 hours. Some of them return stuff after 24 hours. Some of them, whenever they get around to it. So it's a really cool way for educators to have space. I mean, you could have your own classroom that is in your holodeck that you could use. And I see there's more questions. Okay, so this is the castle. What happens if you try to res it and don't have enough prims on a piece of land? Well, you can't lose anything. That's a really good question. Anything that goes into a holodeck in a package by default has to be plus copy. Also has to be plus mod because you have to put a script in if you're building stuff. When I clear out a holodeck scene, when I type in clear, what it does is anything that was out in that scene, it literally just throws it away. It disappears. But the original is still in my holodeck. So I can res this castle scene 500 times, clear it out 500 times, and I still have it. I can't really, oops, excuse me, Lynn. I can't really lose anything. And that definitely applies for if you're on a plot of land where you run out of space, or if you're starting to res stuff on somebody else's land. It will just get rid of them. So that's really not a worry. Boy, these are really great questions. Let me see. There's more questions here, I think. Tried to create a garden to put in my pocket and found that linking was the stuff of nightmares. Yeah, that's true. Well, one of the issues with linking, as you probably figured out, is, for example, maybe you have a really nice chair, and then when you're putting out several chairs, and you think, well, I'll just link those together, but then none of them work right anymore, is one common problem. The advantage of a holodeck, or ResFo for that matter, is that basically to package something, what I do is I build something like this, and then every piece in here that's not linked to something else. So for example, this table, or this fireplace, or this bench over here, I put a single script in there. It's a Horizon scene script that they give you, right? I put the scripts in there, and that's how all these different things know where to go out when I res them, because they all know where the holodeck itself is, and the script records that, okay, I should be to this side, this far away, this elevation compared to the holodeck. So it's a very nice system, and it's a way to avoid that linking issue. Yes, I do have the Pro system again, because that way I make a lot of scenes, and assuming everything in there I have the right permissions, I never mind giving away copies of scenes. So, for example, if anybody is exploring our holodeck here and you see something that you think you'd like a copy of, as long as I have it created so that I can transfer it, I never mind giving away copies. That's one of the reasons I like using the Pro version, because it lets me do that. Okay. So if you add a no copy that is modify, you may lose it. Yes, I have done that. So when I've been building stuff, occasionally I found something that was really cool, right? And I packaged it all up, and I went, okay, let's res this. Oh, it looks great. And then I cleared the scene, and I resed it again, and stuff was missing. That's because I accidentally put no copy stuff into my holodeck scene. So that does not work. See, if I do buy stuff sometimes to include in my scenes because it's fast, but I have to be very careful to get stuff that's copyable. So yeah, you definitely can lose stuff. All right, so let me res something else.
End simulation.
let's see. I'm having some walking problems. I'm using a brand new computer, so I have not had a chance to change the configuration on this to the way I like it. Let's see, something science fiction. Here is just what everybody needs, a Borg cube. Second, this has a couple really big elements. It might take a bit. I'm on the outside.
Fortunately, you created a door.
Ooh, good use of the term assimilated. All right. Now, I mean, if you like science fiction, right, you may recognize this Borg cube, but you can imagine there are some very interesting possibilities for role play with students in this sort of scene. I don't think I have on the holodeck down here because it's too big. We have another holodeck up in the sky where I have some of the really big scenes. For example, there's a command deck for the Starship Enterprise. There's a Klingon bird of prey. There's the go-kart races, and these all have very interesting possibilities, I think, for students in terms of having them very active, having them have a chance to be very creative in a way that, well, you know, unless you're really a good builder, you cannot create your own Borg cube in your classroom. So it lets you do that sort of thing pretty nicely. Okay, I'm going to clear this one out. Seems to be speeding up a bit.
End simulation.
Throw in questions my way if you have them. You know, we do also use Edunation quite a bit for things like conferences. So you may get a little bit buried here. Oh, actually, let me bring up another one. Here's a kind of my version of the Pantheon that I built. And this is one that you could also use for meetings because there's a table built into here as well. But you can imagine if you wanted to do some sort of a play with your students, this could work well. The question is, oh, and then I'll res the boutique because Heike wants to go shopping. Is it possible to allow the students to use the holodeck without deleting everything accidentally? Yes, you can set the permissions on the holodeck. Your own holodeck. I could set this holodeck so that only I could res stuff if I want to. I could set it so only people in the group can use it, whoever that group is. It's up to me. I can also set different channels for this. Everybody who was here probably remembers a couple years ago we had a Slanguages conference, big conference where people come from all over the world to attend a conference in Second Life. And I had out a bunch of conference seating that I had in the holodeck. But I made one big mistake. I forgot to change the communication channel. By default, the communication channel is the one everybody uses, right? And somebody was making a comment during the conference, and I think they said something like, yeah, that is very
Can everybody
clear,
hear me?
You know, and if somebody types clear, oops. So we had probably 50 people seated, and suddenly the seating just disappeared. So that was a bit of a mess. I just used this scene the other day with my students because I just brought in a new group of students, and they always want to change their appearance. So we built a couple years ago here this little boutique, which has free clothing in it. You know, so if you have a new group of students and you want to give them some variety of clothing. Now, you know, we had to get all this stuff so it was full permission so that we could give it to the students. So, you know, it's not the best, super great stuff, but it's a good amount of variety. and everything here in the store is free. It's still resin. We're on the floor right now for women. The next floor up is men's clothes, and the top floor has a kind of a mix and goofy stuff. We also built in to this, you can see over here on this wall, for example, it's a teleport system to go up to the different floors, and also this bigger circle on the women's floor. That will link to teleport people up to a women's dressing room. And then if you go to the men's floor, there's a button you can click to teleport up to a men's dressing room. Because as one of my students found, as happens every time, somebody is going to accidentally get naked when they're first trying on clothes. So she did not use the dressing room, fortunately for her. But the dressing room is there, just in case they want it. So again, this is a way that we can have access to any of these for free. Have you used lindakelly.com? Boy, that doesn't sound familiar at all. Let me take a look at this.
Oh, have a look. It's she's put it all out as Creative Commons, and it includes OER files, content, but you do need to upload it into Second Life, which costs.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, that's one of the nice things. Like the clothing for here. I did a lot of searching and had several people give me some stuff, including Carol. That I could use in here. It's one of the challenges is finding that kind of full permission stuff that you can get. But remember, this is all in the holodeck here. So if any of you, for example, were going to be working with students and wanted to show them some shopping, you would just, let me clear this out so that you can easily see.
End simulation.
So, if we could have, for example, Barbara, why don't you just click the holodeck? Now, she'd just click the holodeck and a menu would come up. One of the buttons on the menu is scenes. There's another button that says shells. And if you choose scenes, it will bring up subcategories, and then you can choose from any of those categories. It's as simple as that from a user perspective. One thing that can happen is if you have a bunch of students together, as soon as somebody clicks a holodeck, it gives them control for a little while. So I've had students click the holodeck, and then I try to click it, and it says, I'm sorry. This other person is using it. So let's see. She brought up, looks like, movie theater. This is one that came with Second Life. It's one I've been meaning to make my own version of, because you can see some of the ones that came, the one that came with the holodeck, I should say. Some of them that came with the holodeck are pretty basic.
Did we show our machinimas on that screen?
Well, that's a good question.
Is that screen usable?
I've not tried. In theory, I don't suppose there's any reason. Let me see if I can edit it. It says click to power on. I'm not sure what kind of screen they have in here. Monitor control, pictures. It says I can show pictures or video. Now this is pretty old. This scene. So this is probably made before. Yeah, it looks like this is probably made before Web on a Prim. But you could always free view. You could always res your own prim in front of the screen to show the machinima very easily. So, yeah, this is one that I've been meaning to make my own version of, but time, never enough time.
And now, should I clear it?
Sure, if you want to. So again, you just anybody can actually type in clear since this is set to the public channel.
Someone's faster than I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I have some other scenes in here. One that I've been working on forever is a European marketplace scene, which is actually quite big, for taking your students into a marketplace. And I'm working on some HUDs to use with that. But that one's
Randall,
been cooking for a while.
Something that might be handy would be a list.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. We should put together a list. And I actually need to finish categorizing some of these. It does help. I think,
in different locations, that way we wouldn't have to go to each one of these and try to figure out if it's in that one or not.
Yeah, because they don't all quite have the same thing. Again, the one up in the sky above Edgination 3, the main difference with that one is there's a few really big scenes that if we tried to res them down here, it would eat up people's plots. So we don't have that there. But most of the scenes in here are a reasonable size. Let me just bring up another one while we're just standing here. Let's see. Oh.
Eventually, I'd like to turn that sky platform into one.
Yeah. It's if people have done any building, it's not difficult to make your own holodeck scenes. Essentially, all you do is you have your build. Then, like I said, there's one script that you put into each element in your scene. You take copies and you put it in a Horizons box, and then you put it in the holodeck. I mean, it's there's all sorts of ways you can screw it up. Believe me, I've done them all.
And then you contact Randall and you say help, right?
Hey, whoa! I've done that before. So this is a scene I actually bought not too long ago, just because I thought it was very creative. Somebody made their little Horizons version of the President's Oval Office. So, I mean, again, you can imagine there'd be some pretty creative ways you could use something like this for machinima, for role play. This could be the West Wing or something like that. There's all sorts of interesting scenes. And again, the way it works with Horizons is I've never sold scenes through them, but if I build something and I want to, I can give it to the guy who created the Horizon system, and he will sell it for me, and he just keeps like I don't know, 10 or 20%, but he does all the work of selling it for me. So that's where they get a lot of these scenes that somebody just builds something and they thought, hey, this is cool, people might want this, and he sells it for them. So there are many hundreds, I think, of possible scenes that you can buy, and in terms of price, they range from 500 lindens to a couple thousand lindens. So I don't think they do have the red phone here or the nuke button. So sorry. Okay. Is it best to insert the script as you go? Is it easy to modify an existing scene? Okay. Is it best to insert the script as you go? What I do is I build the whole scene as I want it. Then I put the script in. Something that Horizons added not too long ago, which makes life a lot easier, is because sometimes did I put the script into that piece or not? It's hard to remember. So now when you're building something in Horizons, I can click, bring up a menu, click the build menu, and say test. And when I do that, what it'll do is everything that I did put the script in as I was building, it will lift everything up like 40 meters. So I can instantly see, oh, okay, I missed that, I missed that, I missed that. Bring the rest down, put the scripts in. It lets me pretty easily figure out if I've got scripts where I need them. Some existing scenes are more modifiable than others. But the exchange rate between Second Life and currency and US dollars, 1,000 lindens, it's about $4. So, I mean, these, in terms of the amount of work that you'd have to do to build these on your own, these are pretty cheap. I mean, when you think about it, where you can get a scene like this for $3 or $4. Many of these scenes can be modified, again, if you do some things with building, because many times they are copy mod. So I'm not sure what I'd do to this scene, but there are scenes that you might get. Oh, for example, I have a good example. I've gotten scenes for sometimes that were like of a haunted house that I thought were very cool, and then I realized the haunted house has a bedroom, and the bedroom has a bed, and the bed has a good old Second Life kinky sex menu in it, which is not something I want my students accessing, especially during class. So I've done things like take the scripts out of the bed or replace the bed with something else so that they can't get me in trouble. So yeah, some of those sorts of modifications are not horribly difficult to do. It just takes practice, just like building stuff in Second Life. But it's something that you definitely can do. Okay, other questions? Where would one find some good pedestrian step-by-step instructions for building scenes on holodecks? Well, there's two stages there, right? First, there's how do you build something? So the how do you build something is is more complicated. That's just a lot of practice. Although many times, and I do this many times, if you're putting together a scene and you look on Second Life Marketplace and you think, well, I need a cool desk for this scene, you might find one on Marketplace that's cheap and it's copy mod transfer, and if it is, I might just buy it instead, because rather than take the time to build it. In terms of these step-by-step instructions for creating a holodeck scene once you have it built, the Horizon system does come with instructions that are very clear, actually. Their instructions are, I think, exceptionally clear. Horizons also does have a very active users group, and they're always happy to answer questions. But if somebody is interested in creating their own scenes, I'm always happy to do a little mini workshop just on that. We decided not to do that today, just because that's more time than really we have available to do this. But the showing somebody how to create a scene using some basic elements. When I teach my students, I just kind of put out a few blocks and show them how to do it. That's simple. That is not difficult to do. Let's see, you have to have the holodeck platform, and then you can move. Yes. So if you have a holodeck platform out, you can move it around, and then it moves the scene with it. Let me see if I can get this one to show. So I just asked our holodeck disk to show up. I don't see it yet. Sometimes they're buried in the floor. But when it shows up, I could move it, and it will just move the rest of the holodeck scene with it. Or, like I said, many times what I do if I go to a sandbox is, let me see, get this to show up. It's just being a little laggy for me. Like I said, I will just res my holodeck, and then I will right-click and sit on it, and then I'll edit it and change the altitude for it to 1,000 meters, and then I'll res a scene. So, at the sandbox, there might be a number of people working and doing stuff, and I don't want to drop a house on their heads, so I can just res the skybox up higher. And I also mentioned that what it also allows you to do is just to res a teleporter. Just a second, I've got some scenes in here where I have that. If I can get this to... Second Life is really being today. All right. Let's try this again. Is everybody still hearing me? Ah, there I am. Okay.
Yes.
I got a little. I'm a little frozen over here, I think.
Yes. Fine.
But yeah, what it allows me to do, I'm not going to be able to do it right now because I seem to be stuck, is to res a scene where all that you see at the ground level is maybe a teleporter, and then the whole scene is way up in the sky. So that's a way that you can have scenes that you can use in different ways. All right, now I'm unfrozen. Weird. Okay, well, that's not going to be happy with me. So you'll just have to suffice it with that. Other questions or comments?
Daniel, a quick question. When I sit on the box and try and get it to go up in the air, the object goes up but leaves me behind.
Well, what's happening is if you try to go far enough, essentially what's happening is the box isn't really leaving you behind typically, but your camera is being left behind. So you feel like you're being left behind. The way around that is sometimes if you hit the escape key or if you stand up, usually you'll find you actually are up in the sky. So it definitely can be a little bit tricky sometimes when you do that.
Great.
But yeah, should not be an issue. So the question was, so griefers can easily come after you if you leave the teleport at the ground level. Well, it depends how you do it. You can also use, there are a lot of teleporters out there that are free or cheap, and I have some of them, where you again can make it so only people in your group can use a teleporter. So if you're working with a group of students over a period of time, you could create a group for those students, and then you would make it so that teleporter is only accessible to those students. You know, I really have not had problems in educational sims. I don't think I've ever had problems with griefers. I mean, I don't know about other people. If you go to a more general sandbox, you know, yeah, it might be possible there. Or if you find a sandbox next to a kinky sex club, well, that would just be a bad idea. don't use that. But yeah, in public areas, it is possible. So yeah, setting the teleporter that way would be a good solution.
Which one do you recommend?
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I recommend now. To be honest, is the system that I used with the Arch. Obviously, there's some weird issues in Second Life. I use a system called M-, which is made by the same person as the holodeck, actually. So if I on my M-, for example, there's a teleporter system built in. So if I have a student who's lost, let's say Carol is lost, I'm going to click on my M-, and I said, let's say, in theory, I'm going to click on my M-, and boy, things are still pretty slow. Let me get her up. Okay, there's Carol's name. So when I click on my M- and I click for names, it brings me up a list of everybody who's around. And, well, let me just choose Barb's name since she's there. I clicked on Barb's name, and I clicked on Beam Up. Notice what that's doing is it's put a beam around Barb. And now if Barb clicks that beam, left clicks it, it will teleport her to where I am. Assuming she was actually at her computer. Oh, there she goes. It's all right. It's picked her up, and now it just delivered her right over to me. And I can also do that. They have the bigger system, which are portals. So I'm going to do portal, and I have set in here a portal to take people to the sandbox. So you can see, and you can choose all sorts of different effects. I'm a geek, so this is a Stargate effect. But there's ones that are, for you kind of Lord of the Rings people. There's ones that look like that. So again, this is one where if you click it, it would bring up the map. So if I'm working with a group of students, I could set up my scene in the sky, and instead of putting out teleporters, I could res this, and the students click on it and go up to the sky, and then this disappears. So it works pretty well for this. By the way, this M- is also handy for something like this. Again, for working with a group of students. It has tools like this built in. Hold on. For example, it has a hovercraft built in that if I res it, you can see it's going to res this hovercraft for me. Click start. And this can carry, I think, up to 9 or 10 people. So if you're working with a group of students and they right-click and sit on this, if they just walk up on it, they might fall off, right? But if they right-click and sit, I can use my keys to take people wherever I want to. We've got somebody kind of stuck. And there we go. So it's a good way to be able to give tours and such to a group of students. And then eventually, when I stand up, this will disappear. So, again, if you need something temporary, why was somebody left behind? Remember, as I said, this will work if you sit on it, right? Not walk up on it. You would right-click and sit, or right-click. So board is what it says. Because otherwise, think of it just like a car. If you're just standing on the car and it accelerates fast, whoop, off you go and to your death. At least on Second Life, it doesn't really kill you. So this M- is a really nice tool for that. For teachers, I find it very, very useful. I can also build holodeck scenes into my M-. M- goes on my screen as a HUD. So I have built into my M- scene. I'm going to just fly up here a little bit so you can see this. I put a couple scenes in here. So remember, this is not my holodeck. I could fly up into the sky and click. One of my buttons is for tools, and I clicked Castle Renoir. That's the castle you saw before. And what this is doing is it's rezzing this castle essentially right out of my avatar. I'm not having to put out a holodeck. I'm not having to res a box, which you can't do up in the sky unless you have a platform. But if you look up now, you'll see I have the castle up above your heads. And people can use it. People can go in there. So it's a very... And I just cleared it out, so I wouldn't leave it there. It's a very versatile tool that way, that with a little work...
I think you left a picture. Oh, a flag.
I think it'll probably clear out. It might take a little bit. Yeah, with a little work, it gives you access to
Horizon's control
lot
panel
of pretty cool stuff. I de-res that a little too fast. Just a second. I'm going to clean up. 1 second. There are these tools available like Holodecks, like M- that, as teachers, give you access to some pretty cool stuff that you can use almost anywhere in Second Life. And M- is something I'm still experimenting with a bit, but I find it very handy. And, I'm a nerd, so it's very cool for me too. Okay, well, I know that I'm almost out of time, so are there any other questions? M-, by the way, is EMDASH, M-. And Horizons, let me just give you a link to their marketplace site if people are interested. Worth looking at anyway. So what you'll see on this link on the marketplace store is this is all the stuff that's made by the person who makes the Horizon system. So the M- I see on there. They also do some stuff with Doctor Who. So if there are any Doctor Who fans, they've got stuff in there. And then there's a bunch of scenes in there that you can see. I don't get any money from them, so it's not like I'm trying to sell you stuff, but I just really like the system.
Randall,
so,
do you think you can take some picture of your scenes and upload them to the Ning? That would be nice.
Yeah, sure.
Your best, the ones that you like the most.
Yeah.
And maybe some.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So again, if anybody wants to explore this more sometime, how do I actually make a scene, and you want to get your own holodeck and such, let me know. I'm always happy to work with people.
Well, we had to repeat this session twice. We have to repeat this session 2 times more. So Barbara will be talking about the holodecks. Um, is this going to be here, or do we have to talk to you to?
The holodeck's always here. Yep, the holodeck is always
Mm-hmm.
here. So that's for everybody to keep in mind. That this is a
Nice.
resource we always have on Edunation. It's always here on the sandbox. So you're welcome. Anyone is welcome to use it anytime.